Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Jones, and I welcome you to another Life Stories Worldwide live broadcast. We bring you stories from across the world, stories of how people have had struggles in their lives, problems of rejection, abuse, and other things like that, and how they've overcome these things in their lives. We want to tell you that we're live on Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook, and we encourage you to tell your friends to join in and listen to these stories, especially the story this evening. There are several ways you can contact us if you want to get in touch with us. You can contact us on our phone line, +44 794 355 0287. You can also email us on lifestoriesworldwide@gmail.com. And you can visit us on our website, www.lifestoriesworldwide.com. We also can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Life Stories at Lunch. And if you subscribe, don't forget to click the subscription button. We need more and more people to subscribe, and to click the bell if you want us to notify you when we're live. And you could also listen to us on Spotify. If you want to listen to the message at any time when you're walking or driving your car, if you go to Life Stories Radio, it's Life Stories Worldwide Radio. There you can listen to the current story or other stories from the past. Today, our story comes from Scotland. Our guest is Andy Brady. We're very thankful to Andrew's wife for letting him come today, because she has been rushed into hospital with a hernia problem and is in pain, but she insisted that Andy should come and share his story. So she's going to be blessed, and I know you're going to be blessed as you listen to Andy's story. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Andy Brady now to share his life story. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Alan. And yeah, my wife, she is a trooper, as we say in Glasgow in Scotland. So she's doing okay. We're trusting God that she'll be home tonight. But whilst we're waiting, she has made sure that I will be here to share my story. And we're just praying that it impacts those who hear it. So before I let you all know what God has done in my life, because really, I wouldn't even have my wife if it wasn't for God. But for me, growing up, for the first 29 years of my life, it was probably relatively normal on the outside. People who maybe looked in my life from afar would probably think I was just a standard Glaswegian Scottish guy growing up, coming from a relatively normal family. Although, do we ever really have normal families? I was the only boy, sandwiched in between two sisters, and I was also my mum and dad's favourite. So my two sisters really loved that the only boy was the favourite, and as you can imagine, that caused some tension in the household growing up. But although my family life wasn't perfect, I knew I was loved. I knew my mum and dad were there for me. I knew, as much as my sisters and I would fight like cats and dogs, I knew that they loved me as well. But from really early on, I knew that there was something in my life that wasn't quite right, and I didn't know what it was. And from very early age, from the age of 6 actually, I got a taste for violence. Now, I was at home, I was very respectful, very loving to my friends, very compassionate, but I was very protective of those who I loved. And that led me to my first fist fight at the age of 6 years old. And now you can imagine what it's like seeing two 6-year-old boys in a fight. There wasn't much technique. It finished with the two of us lying on the floor, kind of grabbing hold of each other. And then by the end of it, we kind of looked at each other and said, like, you say give in, or you say give in. And we finally just said, okay, in the count of 3, we'll both give in. And that was it. We actually went on to become best friends. But that was my first taste of the adrenaline rush of violence, which really never left me for the first 29 years of my life, and from silly little fights in school led me to a lot more danger and dangerous encounters with more dangerous men as I grew up in Glasgow. I was quite intelligent in school, but my guidance teacher in high school, he described me as having a lot of intelligence with no common sense. And that was quite accurate. I could do well all the way through primary school, all the way through high school. I'd pass my tests, pass my exams. But when I was away from class, I was gang fighting, I was chasing as many girls as I could find. I was involved in a lot of criminal activity that just wasn't good. But I was good at hiding it, because outside of my circle of friends, most people wouldn't have known what I'd have been up to. So that was kind of my life. The only thing that kind of at that time that kept me from getting into serious trouble was I was a team football player. So because I was training 3 nights a week plus playing football at the weekends, I couldn't go too mental. So I had to make sure I was turning up for training. I had to make sure that I was there for the weekends for my football game. But that lasted till I was 16, and I got an injury in my ankle, and I had to decide, am I going to carry on or am I going to go look for a job? So I went looking for a job, and my football career at 16 had ended. But by that age, I'd kind of built up quite a reputation within the area that I grew up in for being a fighter. I think being small and ginger left me with a big chip on my shoulder. So I was always ready to.
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.
Life Stories. Life Stories Worldwide is brought to you every Monday night at 8 p.m. UK time. We broadcast live on Facebook, Zoom and YouTube. So why not join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. UK time.
To stand up for myself, and I was ready to stand up for my friends, but that led me into situations where I was stabbed multiple times. I've been stabbed in my back, stabbed in my arm, stabbed in my side. I've had swords hit over the side of my head. I've had bottles smashed over my head. A whole bunch of stuff. Some of them left me hospitalised. I had people who were wanting to shoot me. I had my father's home, doors kicked in. I had windows put in. When I was coming home from work, it would be quite a normal occurrence to find people waiting outside my house to attack me. All the way through from my school years to my working years, this was just my life. It was chaos. But I just couldn't shake it. It was almost like I was addicted to it. The drinking and drug taking, that came later on, which transitioned into from weekends to most weekdays, where I would be finish my work and just head out to the pub, then head out to a club, head back to an after party, go home, get changed, go to work. That was the cycle of life I was in up until the age of 23. And it was tiring because I didn't know who I was. I had to have a mask on when I was with my friends that I was gang fighting with and I was fighting with. I had to have a mask on when I was at my working place. I had a mask on when I was with my family. The only time that I couldn't have a mask on was when I was alone. But when I was alone was when I was scared the most. because then I had to face up to who I really was. And when I took off all the masks, I didn't really like who I was. And there was lots of anxiety, lots of darkness, lots of depression. It was just a really horrible place to be. And it never really left. And even though I was quite popular, even though I had lots of friends, I always felt alone. I always felt lonely. Like I really felt like if I was in a crowded room and I was shouting out, I would feel within myself that I was the only one who could hear me. It felt like I was never heard, and I never really fitted in anywhere. So at the age of 23, I was with my previous girlfriend, and we had a little boy. And I thought, okay, I'm now a dad. And like, bear in mind, I had no faith at this time, like church or God or anything like that. That seemed like something that the nice people who grew up with nice lives, that seemed to be what they did. That wasn't for me, I thought. So I had no kind of moral basis for living, other than I had good parents who loved me and tried to teach me from right or wrong, but my desire for doing wrong outweighed my desire for doing right. I had a child at the age of 23, and I thought then, okay, I'm a dad now. That's going to calm the chaos in my head. That's going to put me on the straight and narrow. That's going to fix all my problems. But having a child in a broken relationship, which I have to say wasn't her fault. It was chaos in my life. But having a child in a broken relationship doesn't fix a broken relationship. Having a child in a broken life doesn't fix a broken life. And as much as I loved that boy and still do love that boy, I never felt like I could be the dad that he really needed. So I tried to come away from the party life. I tried to come away from the gang life. And I'm purposely not going into a lot of detail about the gang life, because what I find is you could spend too long sharing about the darkness and not enough time to show you actually what the transformation is. But all I can say was the dark was really dark. I wasn't just on the receiving end of a lot of violence. I was giving it out. I hurt a lot of people. Some that I'm completely ashamed of, if I'm being really honest. Some of the things that I done in my life, I should be in jail. I should be in a grave, to be honest. And back then, I didn't know why I wasn't. I couldn't work out why I was still living. I didn't think I'd lived till I was 18. I didn't think I'd lived till I was 21. I didn't think I'd lived till I was 25. Like, honestly, from a year-to-year basis, I was thinking within myself, this is my last year. At multiple points, even after I had my son, I was suicidal. Like I said, I couldn't find that place where I felt like I fit in. I couldn't find that place where I felt as if I carried any value. Even if people told me that how much I meant to them, I just, within me, felt that I carried no value whatsoever. And that led to some really dark times. And it led me to November 2013. And it was just a stand-up night where my friends and I were going out to watch a boxing fight that was on that night. My mum was watching my son at the time. And it was a stand-up night for me. We would go have a few beers. So the few beers would lead to a few shots. The few shots would lead to other stuff. And there was a line that once I crossed that line, there was no going back. And when that line was crossed, people get hurt. And that particular evening, when the line got crossed, it led to me in a takeaway shop in Queen Street in Glasgow, with six grown men on top of me, with tables and chairs, bottles, everything they could put their hands on coming over the top of me, hitting off me.
He's coming. Jesus is.
Life Stories. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Life Stories at Lunch, where you can see and hear many more life stories. Don't forget to click the bell so we can notify you when we are live on YouTube.
It was a riot. But I looked over and I could see my best friend at the time on the floor. And this best friend was one of the few friends who tried to stop me from getting in trouble. And when I seen him on the floor, I knew, okay, this is serious now. For me, it was just another fight. But when I saw him on the floor, I went, no, this is serious. So we managed to get up. We managed to get ourselves out of the shop. But by that time, the police had come. And I was handcuffed, put against the wall outside of the takeaway shop. So I just thought, well, I'm heading to the cells, which again wasn't completely unusual for me. And for whatever reason, I really don't know how, they let me go. Now, I caused the fight. It wasn't the 6 other guys. I caused it. It wasn't my friend. It was me. I honestly, to this day, can't remember what I said to them. I was that far gone. But I can remember walking away from it. So I walked away from it, made my way home to my mother's house. I went up to the bedroom. My son was sleeping in the bed. Just jumped into bed, fell asleep and kind of forgot about what had happened. But when I woke up in the morning, my son had woken up. And normally back then, when he woke up, he had a big smile on his face because he was happy to see Daddy. This time, he was petrified. He had a look of complete fear on his face, almost like he saw a ghost or there was monsters in the room. And I was like, what's wrong? What's up? And then I looked at myself and I still had the blood-stained clothes on. My eyes started to be swollen. I had blood over my face. And I called my mum. I was like, please take Andrew away. It's my son. I need to go get washed up. So it was by this time, his mother and I we'd already been split up for a few years. And I called my dad. I said, Dad, can you take Andrew back to his mum's? I'm not in a fit state. So then I knew like something had to change. Something in my life had to shift because there was no way that I could continue going on like this. I couldn't be a good dad to Andrew for 6 days of the week, and then on that one night when I go out, he might wake up and not have his dad there, either because I'm in a jail cell or because I'm in a grave. And I just couldn't do it anymore. So my good friend David York, he had, as I would put it, been on my case for the best part of a year to come to one of his gospel nights that he'd been doing with his church. Now, David and I had grown up together. His mum and my mum were best friends, and he became a Christian inside a prison that he was in at the time. And he'd been asking me to come along to these church services, these gospel nights, and I'm like, look, I'm not interested. There's actually a funny Facebook conversation that we have that he likes to share with people. We had about 6 months previous to this time where I was completely against Jesus, completely against the church, completely against any type of faith. I would have called myself an atheist, but I was probably just more angry at God than I was not believing he was there. But then I called David. I was like, look, I need help. But I'm not interested in your Jesus. I'm not interested in your church. But do you have any counsellors that you could introduce me to or connect me to? And being the really good evangelist that he is, he says, of course I do. Come to church with me on Sunday and I'll introduce you to them. I said, okay. So I went to church on the 1st of December 2013. And it was a Sunday evening. And it was the following week from the incident. Still had the black eye, still had a bloodshot eye. And it was myself, David, and a few other of our friends went along to this church meeting on a Sunday night. And the church that I was in was a very charismatic church. Like I thought I walked into a rock concert. Like there was a full band on, there was electric guitar, people had their hands up, everybody looked happy. Like I thought I was at a gig. Like that's what it felt like. I felt as if I was at a gig. I almost asked David where was the bar so I could order myself a pint. Because everybody was just singing away and it was almost euphoric. But something inside felt different. Like I had this feeling when I walked in and it never left me. And the worship band finished. I never knew what worship band was at the time, but since I found out it was a worship band, they finished their set. Then the pastor had come onto the platform and started preaching about this guy Jesus. And I thought I knew who Jesus was. I thought I knew of Jesus. I kind of knew the Easter story a little bit. And then at the end of the message, he was like, does anybody want to know him? And he said, hold the person sitting next to your hand. And if anybody wants to know him, squeeze the person's hand. So I'm holding my big mate David's hand. Now David's 6'4", a really big guy, and I'm clasping his hand like this, and I couldn't let it go. And when I squeezed his hand, I couldn't stop squeezing it. And he's like, he almost kind of looked at me like, hey, let me go. And I'm looking, like, get off me, you. Like, it was so, when I realised what I was doing, I was like my man, let me go. But I knew, like, I didn't know who this Jesus was, but I knew I wanted to know who he was. So we went forward to the altar, as they called it. I never knew what that was. I just knew I was to go forward and...
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we